Hey guys, I'm Matt, a developer from Ohio, and in this video I'll be walking you through the school catalog project. To complete this project, you'll need to be familiar with classes, constructors, properties, and inheritance. Let's get started. In this project, we'll use JavaScript classes and subclasses to create various types of schools. You can read the object specifications here. Before we finish this project, we'll make sure that each of these objects has every property, getter, setter, and method that is described. The primary, middle, and high schools will inherit from a parent class called school. We can give school all the properties and methods that the three subclasses share in order to save ourselves from writing the code 3 times. So we'll use the keyword class to start that, name it school, and inside the new class, we'll need a constructor. Remember that this is the method that gets called when we create a new instance of school or any of its subclasses. We'll add name, level, and number of students as parameters so that we can pass these in later. So that'll be constructor with the parameters name, level, and number of students. Parameters are just that, parameters of this specific method. They don't exist outside the scope of the constructor. To use their values outside of this method, we need to save them as properties. We can do that by creating new properties of this and setting the values equal to these parameters. So we'll use the same names but with underscores in front to differentiate properties from getters and setters. So, for example, we'll have this._name, which is a property, set equal to name, which is the parameter we pass into the constructor. And then we'll do the same with the other two. Now we'll add getters for each of these three properties. Each getter will return the value of one property. Remember that you should never try to access a property directly. Always go through the corresponding getter. If there isn't a getter for the property you want, that's probably because you shouldn't be accessing it at all. So we'll make 3 getters, one for each property. So the one for name will be getName, and inside we will return this._name. We're returning the property, not the parameter. And again, we need to do this for level and number of students as well. One of the advantages of using getters and setters is that we can protect our properties with extra logic. In this case, we can make sure that number of students is always a number by refusing to change the property if someone tries to set it to anything else. So in set number of students, we'll take in a value, but we're not just going to set number of students to this value. First, we're going to check if the value is not a number. You can use the function isNaN to check if it's not a number. That means that it's a string or an object or anything else. And in this case, we're going to use console.log to log this error message that's provided, which says invalid input, number of students must be set to a number. That's going to let a developer know that they shouldn't be trying to set number of students to anything else. Then in an else block, we can actually set this dot number of students equal to that value because we know it's going to be a number. Each school subclass will need the method QuickFacts, which will log a string that describes that school. We use string interpolation to add our 3 properties to the string provided in this task's instruction. Remember that string interpolation like this requires backticks instead of quotation marks. So this new method will be QuickFacts, and instead of this we'll use console.log to log the message given to us in this instruction, and we're going to use backticks instead of quotation marks and paste in that string. Now, each of these all caps parts we're going to replace with one of our properties. So we can delete this, and to input a property in string interpolation, you use the money sign, and then you use curly braces. And inside of this, we can put the name of one of our properties. So for example, here we can put this.name. Under number of students, we can put this.number of students, and under level, we can put this.level. The last thing we'll add to the school class is the pickSubstituteTeacher method. This method will take in an array of names and pick one of them at random. We'll make this a static method because the substitute teachers do not belong to any specific school. A static method can be called without a specific object that owns it, so we'll be able to call it directly from school. So we'll use the keyword static, and then we'll call our method pickSubstituteTeacher, and we'll pass in an array, which we'll call substituteTeachers. Inside this method, we need to generate a random number from 0 to the number of available substitute teachers. Math.random gives us a number between 0 and 1, so we can multiply it by the number of teachers to get a random teacher index. Note that we also need to use math.floor to make sure that there are no decimal places in our random number. Array elements are only saved at whole number indices. So we'll make a new constant variable called randint, and we're going to use math.floor to make sure that that's an integer. Then we'll use math.random to get a number between 0 and 1, And we'll multiply that by substitute teachers length, which is the number of teachers in the array. Then we can return a specific substitute teacher from substitute teachers, and we're going to pass in randint. So basically, this is giving us a random integer between 0 and the number of teachers. So say this array has 7 names in it. This is going to give us a number between 0 and 7. And whatever that gives us, say 5, it's going to pick the 5th teacher in that list. Now that school is done, we can build subclasses that inherit from school. First will be the primary school class. So we'll use the keyword class, and then the name primary school, and then the keyword extends to say that we are inheriting from school. Primary school needs a constructor, just like its parent, but we can actually leave out the level parameter because every primary school is going to have the same level, primary. So we need name, number of students, and the one property specific to this class, which is pickup policy. So constructor, and we'll pass in name, number of students, and pickup policy. Because primary school extends school, we can use super to pass in the name, level, and number of students. These are the 3 parameters that the constructor of school requires. We can just pass in primary for level because every primary school is primary. So we'll use super to pass in name, the string primary, and our number of students. Pickup policy isn't inherited from school, so it isn't covered by super. We need to save pickup policy to a property in this constructor. So that'll be this dot underscore pickup policy equals pickup policy. So that's saving this parameter to a property. Pickup policy also needs a getter. Again, this is because we didn't inherit one from school. So we need to get pickup policy, and inside of this, we'll return this dot underscore pickup policy. Next up is the high school class. I'm going to go through this one a bit faster because it's almost exactly the same as the last one. First, we'll define the new class. So class high school extends school. Then we'll build the constructor. We'll need name and number of students to pass into super. We'll also add sports teams as a specific property of high school. So that's constructor with name, number of students, and sports teams. And inside of here, we'll use super to pass in name. High is the level, because a high school is always going to have level of high. And then number of students. Then we'll set this dot underscore sports teams equal to sports teams. So we use super to pass name and number of students up to school. And because sports teams is unique to high school, we have to save it as a property inside of this constructor. Finally, we need to add a getter for sports teams. So get sports teams. And inside of this, we will return this dot underscore sports teams. And that's it for this high school class. Now that we have some school types set up, let's test them out. We'll instantiate a primary school object using the properties in this tasks instruction. Remember that these properties correspond to the constructor that we made in the primary school class. So we'll make a new constant. Lorraine Hansberry is the name of this school, and that will be a new primary school. And inside of this, we're going to paste in each parameter. So the name, and then the number of students, which is 514, and then the pickup policy. We'll call quick facts on the new primary school object. We can do this because it's inherited from the parent school class. So we'll get quick facts on that new object that we just made. And when we save and run this, we'll see that we get a string out with the name, number of students, and level. Now let's test out the static pickSubstituteTeacher method. We can call this directly from school without instantiating an object first. We'll pass in the provided array of teachers and log it to the console. So we'll get a new constant variable called sub, and that's going to be school.pickSubstituteTeacher, and we can pass in this array that's provided to us. Again, we can call this directly from school because inside of school, we noted that this was a static method. We can also instantiate a new high school. Just like with the primary school, we'll use the properties listed in this task's instruction. So we'll make a new constant variable, Al Smith, which is the name of the school. That'll be a new high school. And into this, we'll paste each parameter. So we'll get the name. The number of students is 415. And then we'll get this array of sports teams. And again, this all goes back to the constructor that we made in the high school class. We can use the sports teams getter to log that property of the new high school. So we can do console.log alsmith.sportsteams. And that will log out the sports teams array because of the getter that we made in the high school class. We're done with the step-by-step tasks for this project, but it's great practice to challenge yourself by trying to expand upon the project. I'll give you some hints for each of the suggested expansions. To add more properties, you'll need to modify a class's constructor by adding a parameter. You'll need to decide which properties need getters and setters. That all depends on how the property will be used. To create a school catalog class, you should make a new class that doesn't extend school. This class should have at least two parameters, level, which will be primary, middle, or high, and schools, which will be an array that holds school objects. You can add a verification step in an add schools method that makes sure you're adding the right level of schools. In this project, we created classes and subclasses to represent various kinds of schools. We practiced the common pattern of JavaScript constructors and explored the differences between parameters, properties, getters, and setters. We also used inheritance and static methods. Classes are integral to object-oriented programming, so it's important to become familiar with their patterns. I'm Matt from Codecademy. Happy coding!